At my big celebration dinner, where my entire family gathered to finally recognize my hard work, my younger sister once again tried to steal the spotlight by faking one of her chronic pain attacks. But this time, I was fully prepared with undeniable proof, including a video I recorded just 20 minutes earlier, predicting her every move, down to the exact moment she would grab her side, call for mom, and demand to be taken to the hospital. At my celebration dinner, my sister collapsed from her chronic pain right as I announced my promotion. So, I played the video I'd taken 20 minutes earlier, predicting her exact reaction. Before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe, and also drop a comment below. What's one life lesson you think everyone should learn before it's too late? Share your thoughts. Thanks. Let me take you back to the beginning. My little sister Jenna was born 2 months premature, came out bluer than a robin's egg, and spent the first 3 years of her life hooked up to tubes and machines at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Naturally, my parents were incredibly protective of her. They'd camp out by her bedside, buy every toy she pointed at, and demand I ditch hanging with friends to babysit her. At first, I thought this was right. She was my chronically ill baby sister after all. But then Jenna got older, got healthier. She no longer needed oxygen tanks or feeding tubes, and could live completely normally. However, by this point, she had learned that being sick got her whatever she wanted, whether that was material things or just sympathy and attention. It started with her headaches mysteriously returning whenever she had algebra homework. Mom and Dad would whisk the textbooks away, replacing them with Ben and Jerry's Chunky Monkey and Netflix privileges. By the time Jenna turned 11 and I was 16, she had perfected her act. And it really bothered me because her pain only struck during my shining moments. When I made varsity soccer at Lincoln High, she developed mysterious stomach cramps that required my parents to leave my first game early. When I got accepted to Penn State, she collapsed during my celebration dinner at Olive Garden, and we spent the night in the ER at Jefferson Hospital, where doctors found absolutely nothing wrong. The worst part was how she'd smirk at me when our parents weren't looking. She even practiced her pain faces in the bathroom mirror. I tried showing my parents once, but Jenna had already told them I was jealous of the attention she needed for her condition. My boyfriend Connor lasted 8 months before Jenna got to him. She created fake screenshots of text messages where I supposedly called her a faker and wished she would just disappear already. The breakup happened at Starbucks on Market Street. Connor slid his iPhone across the table, showing me the evidence Jenna had compiled. He said he couldn't be with someone who treated their sick sister so cruelly. Jenna texted me a selfie, wearing the Eagles hoodie Connor had given me for Christmas. That was my breaking point. For 5 years, I had watched her steal everything that mattered to me. So, I started watching her closely, way more closely than anyone ever had. And I noticed a pattern. Every single time Jenna was in pain, she always grabbed her right side. Whether it was her head, her stomach, her kidneys, always the right side. She always called specifically for mom first, never dad. Always rated her pain between 8 and 10 on that medical scale. And she always recovered in exactly 2 to 3 hours, which was just long enough to ruin whatever I had planned. Once I recognized this pattern, I developed my plan. And last Sunday at our monthly family dinner, it went down better than I ever could have hoped for. We were having our usual gathering with all the aunts, uncles, and cousins at Grandma Betty's house in Germantown. About 20 people crowded around her massive oak dining table that had been in our family for generations. 20 minutes before dinner, I excused myself to the bathroom upstairs where I recorded a video on my phone. In that video, I explained that I was about to make a fake announcement about getting promoted at my job at the marketing firm downtown. I predicted exactly how Jenna would react. She would wait for the applause to die down, then grab her right side and whimper for mom. She would rate her pain as an 8, 9, or 10. She would need to lie down immediately, and she would ask mom to drive her to the hospital if the pain didn't improve within 20 minutes. At dinner, I stood up and clinked my wine glass with a butter knife, getting everyone's attention. The conversations died down as 20 pairs of eyes turned toward me. Then I announced that I had just been promoted to senior account manager with a huge raise at Henderson and Associates. Everyone erupted in applause and congratulations. Uncle Tommy patted my back. My cousins Brittany and Ashley hugged me tight, and Mom had actual tears of pride sparkling in her eyes. The sound of clapping echoed through Grandma's dining room, mixed with congratulations and jokes about how I could finally afford to move out of my studio apartment. Uncle Tommy made a crack about me becoming the rich niece of the family, while Grandma was already planning out loud how I could help her with her prescription costs. I kept the smile plastered on my face, waving and thanking everyone, but my eyes were laser-focused on Jenna. She was sitting at the far end of the long table between my cousin Derek and Aunt Susan, absent-mindedly pushing around the mashed potatoes on her plate. For just a moment, she almost seemed genuinely happy for me. Almost. But I knew her too well. I saw the exact instant something shifted in her expression. It was subtle, as it always was. A small contraction around her eyes, a slight stiffening of her shoulders. She looked around the table, noticing how all attention was focused on me, how people were genuinely excited about my achievement, how I was absolutely glowing. And then it began. First, Jenna stopped eating. She let her fork drop onto her plate with a soft clink that only a few people nearby noticed. Aunt Susan asked if she was okay, but Jenna just shook her head with that forced smile, one of those she used when she wanted to appear brave despite overwhelming pain. I continued talking with Uncle Tommy about the details of my promotion, lying shamelessly about responsibilities I didn't have and a salary that didn't exist. But part of me was counting down 3, 2, 1. Like a Swiss watch, she brought her hand to the right side of her abdomen. The first moan was almost inaudible, a low sigh that mixed with the noise of conversations. But Jenna knew exactly how to project her voice, so it seemed like she was trying to hide something when really she wanted everyone to hear. My cousin Derek, who was sitting beside her, stopped mid-sentence in a story about his new job at the fire department. "Jenna, everything okay there?" he asked, leaning toward her with concern. "It's nothing," she murmured, but loud enough for at least half the table to hear. Her voice had that specific tone, brave, but with a hint of vulnerability that always melted people's hearts. "Just a little pain," she added softly. And so began the show I had watched so many times before. Aunt Susan immediately turned completely toward Jenna, forgetting her conversation with Grandpa Joe about the Eagles' chances this season. "What kind of pain, sweetie? Where does it hurt?" Jenna curved slightly in her chair. A perfect performance calculated to the millimeter. Not too dramatic, because that would seem fake. Just enough to show real discomfort. It's here on the right side," she said, pressing her hand against her body. It came out of nowhere. I watched the change happen in real time. Conversations began to lower in volume. Glances gradually turned toward Jenna. My promotion, which minutes ago was the center of attention, began to fade into the background, replaced by the automatic family concern that always surrounded my sister. Mom, who had been beside me laughing at Uncle Carlos's story about his disastrous fishing trip, suddenly stopped mid-laugh. That expression I knew so well began to take over her face. The maternal panic that Jenna knew how to invoke with surgical precision. "Jenna, what happened, honey?" Mom was already halfway up from her chair, her napkin falling to the hardwood floor. Jenna raised her eyes, always to Mom first, never to Dad. I had noticed this pattern years ago. "Mom, it's hurting quite a bit," she whispered, her voice trembling just the right amount. Not too much, not too little. Enough to sound genuine, but not so much that it seemed theatrical. Dad, as always, went into problem-solving mode. "What kind of pain?" "Cramping, burning, sharp. It's a dull ache," Jenna answered, closing her eyes as if concentrating to describe it accurately, but really intense, "and it's getting worse." Grandma Betty crossed herself. Uncle Tommy frowned with worry. My cousin Ashley was already asking if anyone had Advil in their purse. The attention of the entire room had completely shifted from me to Jenna, like water spiraling down a drain. I kept smiling, kept participating in the speculation about what could be causing Jenna's pain. But inside, I was fascinated watching the machine work. It was like watching a conductor directing an orchestra. Each moan, each expression of pain, each word chosen to get exactly the desired reaction. "On a scale of 1 to 10, Dad asked, already grabbing the Honda keys from the sideboard near the table. This question had become a sacred ritual in our family over the years. Jenna paused for a moment, as if she were really evaluating the intensity of the pain. Another brilliant touch. If she answered immediately, it might seem rehearsed. It's an 8, she said finally, her voice coming out weaker. Maybe a 9. Of course it was. It was never less than 8, never a 10. That would be too dramatic, too obvious. Always between 8 and 9, enough to be alarming, but not so much that it would raise suspicions. I watched the entire family dynamic reorganize around Jenna's pain. Aunt Susan began telling everyone about when she had kidney stones. Grandma murmured about how the poor girl had suffered so much since she was little. My cousin Derek was already suggesting maybe it was appendicitis. My promotion had become a distant memory in less than 5 minutes. Jenna curved a little more, bringing her second hand to support the first. Mom, I think I need to lie down, she whispered, but loud enough for everyone to hear. And then she did that thing that always made me want to scream. She looked directly at me for just a second when she was sure no one else was looking, and she smiled. A small smile, almost imperceptible, but it was there, the smile of someone who had just scored the winning goal. Maybe we should take her to Temple Hospital, Mom said, already standing up completely. Susan, can you drive? I'm too nervous. It was at that moment that something snapped inside me. It wasn't anger anymore. It was something colder, more calculated. Everyone stood up, preparing to transform what should have been my night of celebration into another rush to the emergency room. I stood up too, but instead of grabbing my purse, I grabbed my phone. Wait, I said, my voice coming out calmer than I felt. Before we go running to the hospital, there's something you all need to see. Jenna looked at me, and for the first time, I detected something different in her expression, a hint of suspicion, maybe even fear. But she was too committed to the performance to stop now. Carla, this isn't the time for this, she said, her voice still weak and suffering. I'm in a lot of pain. I know exactly how much pain you're feeling, I replied, unlocking my phone. And I know exactly when it's going to pass. Aunt Susan frowned. Carla, what do you mean by that? I held the phone in the air, my finger hovering over the play button. I recorded a video 20 minutes ago. You're all going to want to watch this. Jenna went completely still. Her hand was still pressed to her right side. Her expression still showed pain, but something had changed. It was as if she realized the ground was moving under her feet, but didn't know exactly why. What video? Mom asked, still torn between concern for Jenna and curiosity about what I was doing. I looked directly at Jenna, seeing the exact moment she understood that something was terribly wrong. Her eyes widened slightly, but she couldn't abandon the act now. Not in front of the whole family. A video that's going to explain a lot, I said and pressed play. My voice came out clear and firm from the phone speaker. It's 6:40 p.m. on Sunday. In 20 minutes, I'm going to make a false announcement about a promotion at work during family dinner. When I do this, Jenna will wait for the applause to finish. Then, she'll grab the right side of her body and call for Mom. She'll rate the pain as 8 or 9. She'll ask to lie down, and if she follows her pattern, she'll suggest going to the hospital in exactly 15 minutes. The silence in the room was so dense, I could hear the tick-tock of Grandma's grandfather clock. All eyes turned to Jenna, who had become completely frozen, her hand still glued to her right side as if it had been super-glued there. She always holds the right side. My recorded voice continued mercilessly. No matter what type of pain it is, head, stomach, kidney, always the right side. Always calls specifically for Mom first, and she always recovers in 2 to 3 hours. Just enough time to ruin any important moment of mine. Grandma Betty was the first to find her voice. Jenna, is this true? Jenna tried to recover, but I could see the panic growing in her eyes. I don't know what Carla is talking about, she stammered, trying to return to the suffering tone. I'm really in pain. Don't you believe me? I'm not done yet, I said, pausing the first video. That was just the appetizer. I navigated to the next folder on my phone, a collection I had been meticulously compiling over the past few months. Do you want to see what really happened at my high school graduation? Carla, stop this, Jenna whispered. But her voice had lost all that theatrical fragility. Now it sounded sharp, almost threatening. I played the next video. It was security camera footage from Lincoln High that I'd gotten through my friend Jake, who worked in the IT department. The grainy image showed Jenna in the side hallway near the water fountains 5 minutes before the ceremony began. She was completely alone, checking her phone. Then suddenly, she put the phone away, looked around to make sure no one was watching, and started practicing. There, alone in that hallway, my sister was rehearsing expressions of pain. She frowned, brought her hand to her chest, made different grimaces using the reflection in a glass trophy case. She was literally rehearsing which expression would be most convincing. My God, Aunt Susan murmured, her hand flying to cover her mouth. Wait, there's more, I said, moving to the next file. Remember when Connor broke up with me? When he said I was cruel to my sick sister? Jenna went pale. Carla, don't. These are the original messages she sent to Connor, pretending to be me. I showed the screenshots I had managed to recover from her phone's cloud backup. Another favor from my tech-savvy friend Jake. Look at the dates and times. She waited for me to leave the house to use my laptop and create fake social media accounts. The messages were vicious, saying horrible things about Jenna that I would never think, let alone write. But they were written in my style with slang. I used details that only someone who knew me intimately would include. Dad took my phone with trembling hands reading message by message. His expression grew darker with each line. She even researched your work schedule. I continued to know when I wouldn't be home. I created a fake Instagram profile with my photo. I added Connor as a friend and started sending these messages pretending to be me. When he confronted me about them, she acted shocked and said, I must have let someone use my computer. Jenna, Mom said, her voice coming out as a broken whisper. This can't be true. But it is, I said, feeling a dark satisfaction watching Jenna's house of cards begin to crumble. And there's more, much more. I moved to the next file, an audio recording I had secretly made the previous month using a voice recorder app. This is Jenna on the phone with her friend Chloe last week. Jenna's voice came out clear from the phone. It's really easy, Chloe. You just need to know the right buttons to push. Mom gets desperate if I say it's a headache on the right side. But if I say it's stomach pain, she takes longer to react. And it always works better when Carla is having a good day. Then everyone feels sorry for me and gets annoyed with her for being insensitive. Chloe laughed in the recording. You're terrible, Jenna, but your sister really is kind of stuck up anyway. She thinks she's better than everyone. Jenna continued, She was always the favorite. Always had everything handed to her. At least when I fake being sick, I managed to get them to pay attention to me, too. And it's fun watching her get frustrated. The silence that followed was deadly. Jenna was white as a sheet, trembling. And this time, the trembling was completely real. "Jenna," Grandma Betty said, her voice loaded with disappointment that cut through the air like a knife. "How could you?" "There's more," I said relentlessly. "Do you want to see the video of when she fainted at my 18th birthday party?" This time, Jenna tried to get up, probably to run away, but Uncle Tommy gently but firmly held her by the shoulders. "Stay there, Jenna. I think you need to hear this." The video showed Jenna in our backyard, hidden behind the barbecue grill 10 minutes before making her big dramatic entrance. She was testing different ways to faint on the grass, checking which angle would be most convincing and least dangerous. She practiced for 15 minutes, falling sideways, falling forward, falling backward. She chose the side fall because the grass was softer there. My cousin Derek made a sound that was half shocked laughter, half groan of disbelief. "Jenna, this is sick." "It's not sick," I said finally, putting the phone away. "It's calculated, systematic." She turned manipulation into an art form. Jenna finally exploded. Okay, damn it. Do you want the truth? I faked it. I faked it sometimes. Yes. But you don't understand. The tears started rolling, but now they were different. Tears of anger, of frustration, of someone caught red-handed. "Do you think it's easy being perfect Carla's sister? Carla the smart one. Carla, the popular one. Carla who never does anything wrong? Do you know what it's like to grow up in her shadow? So, you decided to sabotage me?" I replied coldly. "Destroy my relationships. Ruin my important moments. Make everyone think I'm a cruel and insensitive sister. Because you had everything." Jenna screamed. All pretense of being sick completely abandoned. "You always had everything. And me? I was just the sister who almost died as a baby. The only way anyone paid attention to me was when I was sick." "But you weren't sick," Dad said, his voice low but loaded with deep disappointment. "You were lying for years and sabotaging your sister's life in the process. And stealing money," Mom added, tears streaming down her face. "Jenna, how could you be so cruel?" "Cruel?" Jenna laughed, but it was a bitter sound. "Do you want to know what's cruel? Growing up watching your sister get congratulated for breathing while you need to almost die for someone to notice you. You were never almost dying." I exploded. "At least not in the last 5 years. You were acting, manipulating, lying because it worked. Because it was the only thing that worked," she screamed back. The room fell into stunned silence. One by one, family members began to stand up and distance themselves from Jenna. Uncle Tommy shook his head in disgust. Aunt Susan gathered her purse with trembling hands. Even Grandma Betty, who had always been Jenna's biggest defender, sat frozen in her chair, staring at her youngest granddaughter as if seeing a stranger. 15 years, Mom whispered. 15 years of believing, worrying, canceling plans, losing sleep, and I lost 15 years of my life, too. I added. 15 years being treated as the cruel and insensitive sister. 15 years watching my important moments get destroyed. 15 years being blamed for not having enough patience with a sick sister. Jenna raised her face, tears making tracks through her makeup. "Carla, I am sorry." "I'm really sorry." "Now you're sorry?" I said, "now that you've been caught?" I looked around the table at my family, seeing the mix of shock, disappointment, and betrayal in their faces. "You all know now. You all know what kind of person she really is. You know what she did to me, to this family for years." I grabbed my purse and walked toward the door. The sound of Jenna's real crying, not performed, but genuine anguish, followed me. "Where are you going?" Mom asked, tears streaming down her face. "Away from here," I replied. "Away from this toxic dynamic, and especially away from her." I pointed at Jenna without even looking in her direction. "I'm going where I should have gone years ago. I'm going to build a life where people like her can't reach me." The door slammed behind me, but not before I heard Jenna start screaming. Not from fake pain this time, but from real agony. The agony of finally having to face who she really was. And for the first time in years, the sound of her pain didn't make me feel guilty. It made me feel free. Sometimes the truth hurts more than any lie ever could. But sometimes that pain is exactly what's needed to finally heal.